Hello everyone, Hyper here. Today we'll be talking about the Fury Warrior on the BFA beta. In this video we'll take a look at all of the talents, abilities that were changed, removed, or added to the game. And then towards the end of the video I will kind of go through a few potential builds for single target and AoE that you might see come up in either Raiding or Mythic Plus, and then give my overall feedback and impressions of the class and how it's turned out after the massive wave of changes. Let's just jump straight into it and take a look at the abilities that were removed and added. The only thing that was really removed is Furious Slash, but this was made into a talent, so it's not really removed. As far as new abilities goes, we get Victory Rush and we also get Battle Shout, so there's just a 10% AP buff to the party and the raid. And then Victory Rush works the same way it does on arms, so you're able to use it if you got a killing blow recently and it heals you for 20% of your max HP. There were a lot of baseline abilities that were changed. First of all, and probably the biggest one, was to Enrage. Now it increases your damage by 11% and haste by 25%, and then your movement speed also by 10%. They also changed the way you proc it by making it your Bloodthirst have a 30% chance of proccing it, your Enrage always procs it, and you also no longer take increased damage while you're enraged, which is a very significant change. The second major change was to Execute, and this was changed from a spender to a rage builder, and the ability now has a 6-second cooldown and generates 25 rage. It is still only usable on targets below 20% HP unless you have it talented. Raging Blow was changed to have 2 charges and have a 7.5 second recharge, and also has 20% chance to reset its cooldown whenever you use it. Recklessness is our baseline offensive cooldown now, which increases our rage generation by 100% and grants us 20% crit for 10 seconds. And the cooldown on it was increased by 30 seconds, so it's now 1 minute and 30 seconds instead of just 1 minute. Whirlwind was slightly changed to now cause your next 2 single target abilities instead of just 1, to also hit up to 4 additional targets. Those were the baseline abilities and passive changes. Let's take a look at all of the talents. And we'll go row by row. In tier 1, we have kind of our rage generation row. War Machine was changed to increase our rage gen from auto attacks, and also killing enemies grants 10 rage and some movement speed. Endless Rage was changed to now generate 6 rage whenever you enrage, so that's just a little nice passive increase in rage generation. Fresh Meat was also changed to increase your Bloodthirst chance to enrage you, and your Bloodthirst will also heal you for more. This talent is still kind of out of place to me because this row should be about rage generation, and this doesn't really impact your rage generation, it's more of a self-healing and utility talent. In tier 2, this is our utility row. Shockwave was removed, and Double Time Stormbolt worked the same way as they did in Legion. Impending Victory is a new talent that replaces Victory Rush, and essentially just makes it usable even if you didn't just get a killing blow. However, if you do get a killing blow, it will automatically reset its cooldown, so you get to use it again. In tier 3, this is kind of our damage row. Inner Rage was moved to this row and was changed to reduce the cooldown on Raging Blow and increase its damage. Outburst, Avatar, and Wrecking Ball were all removed from the game, and so we see 2 new talents here. Sudden Death is a proc-based talent that makes your Execute usable even when outside of Execute range. And this is especially nice now that Execute actually generates rage instead of using it. Furious Slash, like I mentioned before, was removed as a baseline ability and made into a talent. And now it still deals physical damage and increases your haste by 3%, stacking up to 3 times. In tier 4, this is another utility row and is mostly unchanged other than some little tuning changes, but Warpaint is now considerably better because it is a 10% damage reduction whenever you're enraged. Tier 5 is our Execute versus Rampage row. The first talent here, Carnage, was changed to reduce Rampage cost by 10 and increase the damage it deals by 10%. Massacre, the middle talent, was changed to make your Executes usable on targets below 35% health, rather than below 20%. Frothing Berserker was also changed to make your Rampage cost 95 rage, and after you use it, you gain 10% damage bonus and 10% haste. Tier 6 is our AoE row, and in this row both Bloodbath and Frenzy were removed, and Inner Rage was moved up to tier 3. Meat Cleaver is a new talent that causes your Whirlwind to generate extra rage per target hit, and also has a 10% chance to enrage you. Dragon Roar was moved to this row, and it was changed to just deal AoE damage and slow the targets that it hits. And then Bladestorm again was moved to this row, and was changed to deal its damage in half the duration and generate 15 rage whenever you use it. Tier 7 is our cooldown row. Reckless Abandon was changed to increase rec duration by 3 seconds instead of 2, and it still generates 100 rage whenever you use it. Anger Management is a new talent which gives your recklessness CDR based on the rage you spend. Siegebreaker is our last new talent, and it works essentially the same way as Colossus Smash on Arms Warrior. It has a 30-second cooldown and gives you 15% increased damage for 10 seconds against the target that is affected. Now that you understand how the new talent system works, let's take a look at some potential builds. Fury Warrior has a lot of choices, and most of them will come down to tuning once BFA actually launches. But for now, let's take a look at 2 or 3 separate builds and that are kind of designed around a pattern and a theme. So the first one here is the Frothing Berserker build. So with this, we'll be getting haste and extra damage windows. So since we're getting extra haste, we want to take War Machine because we have more haste, so we're auto-attacking quicker, so we're generating more rage. And since we are generating more rage, we also want to take Anger Management, so we have that Recklessness window more often. The idea behind this is super simple. You sometimes generate extra rage from sudden death. With this build, you can probably also take Furious Slash. I don't really like playing around with it too much, especially since it is only 6% extra haste. They actually nerfed it down from 9. But you can take either talent in this situation. It is kind of up to you. The idea behind the rotation is super simple. You charge in, and whenever you get to 95 rage, you want to rampage. And then outside of that, you just want to keep your Raging Blow and Bloodthirst on cooldown, and then fill any downtime you have with Whirlwinds. We'll charge in, wreck, Bloodthirst. We immediately got a proc there. Then we're able to rampage. Again, execute proc. Make sure we keep that Raging Blow on cooldown. Getting pretty decent procs. Now we have some downtime. We're just gonna Whirlwind. Almost back to 95 rage. There we go. Rampage again. So this rotation feels super smooth. It is a little RNG reliant, since if you're not getting those sudden death procs, your rage generation will be a little bit lower. But you still have decent uptime. You have very nice burst. And then obviously for AoE, you will still have the choice between taking either of the 3 talents depending on what type of AoE you need. But since this is mostly a single target demonstration, we're not even going to worry about that talent row. So again, we get to 95, and we're almost back off Recklessness, 20 seconds. And you can see the damage, 2.5k. Obviously BFA or beta damage doesn't really mean much, since they're assuming they're going to be doing tuning passes. But the damage is definitely there if I am to compare it to other melee classes on single target right now. The second build here is a Reckless Abandon Rampage build. So since we will be rampaging pretty often, we want to take Endless Rage, because since we're rampaging often, we have more enrage uptime, so we're going to benefit more from Endless Rage than we will from War Machine. Then in the tier 5 row, you take Carnage, because obviously you want to lower the cost of Rampage, since this build is kind of focused around it. Again, in the tier 3 row, you can either take Sudden Death or Inner Rage for this build. And like I said before, this will mostly come down to tuning, but Sudden Death is nice just for that extra rage generation. Then in the last row, you take Reckless Abandon, so you can go into every fight with 100 rage off the bat. So we will charge in here, Recklessness, and immediately be able to rampage. And right there, we actually got a proc, and we can rampage again. And the point of this build is to maximize rage uptime via rampages. And you can see it right here. While I have Recklessness up, it's going to be very easy to keep perfect in rage uptime. Once it falls off, we'll have little parts of downtime, but overall not that much. And we're depending on how lucky you get with Bloodthirst procs, you will have very, very high in rage uptime with this build. Then the last build here is an Execute build. So I'm not going to play around too much with Siegebreaker. My one thought on it is that this talent fits much better into Arms. Since Arms Warrior can pack a lot of damage into a short duration, Fury is more about doing sustained damage and kind of having even damage throughout the board. So I played around with it a little bit, but I didn't really like having to pack a lot of damage into a short window. And this might become a good talent at the end of the expansion, towards the end of the expansion, where you can pack a huge amount of damage into those 10 seconds. But for now, with my current gear, it doesn't feel all that great since I'm not able to get that many significant global cooldowns in it. So this last build is essentially an execute build, where you take sudden death and massacre. The idea behind it is that you're able to start executing at 35% HP, and you'll also be getting those sudden death procs. And overall, it's just revolved around execute. And if the damage of execute it will be tuned properly and is actually doing significant amount of damage, even though now it's a builder instead of a spender, this build has a potential to be very good on fights where you have long execute times. Now let's take a look at how this Frothing Berserker build plays on AoE. So I am going to be using Bladestorm here, and if you are using Bladestorm, it requires a little bit of setup because you want to cast Rampage right before you Bladestorm because you want to guarantee that you're enraged the entire time. And also, I will have Recklessness up, so I will also cast that right before casting Rampage. But other than that, you just want to Whirlwind every 2 or every 3rd ability because you want to be able to cleave targets with Bloodthirst and with Rampage. So what are my overall thoughts on the Fury Warrior? Well, first of all, Warrior is always a meta class. Well, maybe not always, but most of the time is a meta raid class. And either Fury or Arms has a very high potential of being good in Mythic raiding. The Fury Warrior changes that were pushed quite recently are very, very good, and they actually make Fury Warrior play more like a Legion class rather than a BFA class. And what I mean by that is that most of the classes have been slowed down significantly in BFA, and that is mostly due to losing the artifact trait or the artifact weapon, which has all of the traits on it, that kind of sped up our cooldowns and improved our gameplay here and there. Also, with offensives going on the GCD, the gameplay is a little bit slower, but Fury Warrior, especially if you tend to go with a high haste build, plays very, very similar to a class from Legion. Honestly, it constantly feels like you have Bloodlust active. And with actual Bloodlust active on top of it, it feels absolutely amazing to play. The rotation is also very smooth and very, very intuitive to play depending on what build you tend to go with. And I really like that we will have options that you can kind of build talent sets based on themes. So you can either go with like a Rampage build, more of a haste and empower build, or more of an execute build. So that's really nice to see. It is true that for high mythic raiding, there will most likely be one best build, maybe depending on the type of boss fight, 1 or 2 builds that will mostly be determined by damage tuning. But currently, it's very nice to see that we have the potential of having multiple options as far as talents go. As far as warrior mobility and utility goes, they are still very good, especially if you take double time, you're able to have those 2 charges. And then on top of that, with the new Warpaint talent, you have basically a constant 10% DR. Well, a constant might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but depending on your enrage uptime, you will have a 10% DR quite frequently. And also, if you want to save that, you can also save up Rage and cast your Rampage right before damage is about to come in. That way you can guarantee that you have that 10% DR. And then to our utility kit, we also got the Battle Shout added, so we're buffing our entire party or raid. And then on top of that we still have Rallying Cry, but that will most likely be used as a raid cooldown rather than personal. So again, it is just adding utility to the raid. And then in the defensives department, we have Enraged Regen, which is a 30% DR and also restores 20% of HP. And this is a very nice defensive ability, especially with Warpaint. If you're enraged and you use Enraged Regen, that is a pretty big DR. So what are the downsides of Fury Warrior? Well, currently there's actually not that many, and honestly, I have nothing major to complain about with the Fury Warrior. All of the recent changes have been absolutely fantastic, and they make the gameplay feel very, very awesome and smooth. And as long as the damage tuning is there in BFA whenever it goes live, I think Fury Warrior will be one of the top melee classes. Thank you so much for watching the BFA Fury Warrior preview, and if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and sub to the channel. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can check out my Patreon, the link to it is in the description box. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.